that you can access 24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand, sports talk for America.
This show is brought to you by BetUS.com. 125% off your first 3 deposits, 30 years experience, secure site, wagering for all sports, including during the games and futures. SeatGeek provides you the best prices on sports and music events, game tickets, and concerts. Use NSS promo code to get $20 off your first ticket. Keep using the NSS promo code when purchasing tickets for great deals in the future. In Fanatics at nessp.info for your favorite teams, sportswear. Click on the link, and while you're there, check out our national streaming sports merchandise. Yes, sir. Good morning, folks. And welcome to the Monday edition of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack, and we've got a lot of professional football to talk about today, folks. I mean, that's what drives the sports right now anyway. So, Jack, you know, we had a lot of games that kind of were surprises. I didn't expect a couple games. Some teams got their better standings for the end of the year for the playoffs. Some are still hanging in there. And the first game I want to talk about is last night's game with Dallas. Their defensive backfield really causing fumbles, getting fumbles, ended up beating Tampa Bay 26-24.
It was good to see Dallas show some pride at home. They had gotten eliminated from the playoffs hours earlier, which wasn't a surprise at this stage of the season going into the day early on. No one expected them to make a playoff run. Everything would have had to bounce perfectly. Their window closed, you know, before that, but then it became official, and they showed a lot of pride. And a bigger story was how much that game hurt Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay was having a good season. They were a couple of games behind Atlanta. They overtook the Falcons. They had a 1-game lead, but the Falcons had the tiebreaker. And the Falcons basically had a gimme yesterday against the Giants. They took care of business. And the Buccaneers slipped up a little. And now with 2 games to play, even though technically they're tied in the standings, the Falcons have the tiebreaker. So the Buccaneers have to make up 1 game with 2 to play. And in other words, if Atlanta wins their next 2 games, they win the division. But they're going to have to play at Washington. Then they're going to have to play against Carolina. And Carolina's playing better of late, so that's not a gimme per se. But the Falcons would be favored against Carolina, but they'd be an underdog against Washington. But then the Buccaneers would have to win both their games left. And one of them, I believe, is against Carolina as well. And it's going to be tough sledding, you know, for the Buccaneers. But they could make up the game. But now they need help. They need help because, like I said, if the Falcons win both their games, the Falcons win the division.
I mean, Baker Mayfield played. I mean, he played like he was possessed. I mean, that was like a playoff game. I mean, you see that video of him actually grab and pushing it to the guy. The guy catches the ball. He's running with the ball. Dallas wrestles it away from him. Dallas ball. I mean, it seemed, and Tampa Bay did have a shot at the end too. I'm not sure if it was an interception or incomplete pass, but it was just a great game, Jack.
Yeah, and then a great game for Sunday night. Sunday night's a showcase game in the NFL. And believe me, the players know it because all their peers are watching that game as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of football, Max. They're playing Wednesday. What are they playing Christmas Day? 3 games? Then that's a game Thursday, then Saturday, then Sunday.
Yeah.
Max, there'll be things to keep you busy.
I guess
there'll be games on. You won't be bored, Mac.
Not at all. I'm never bored at Christmas anyway, Jack.
So you'll have the games on, definitely.
Oh, definitely. You kidding me? Minnesota.
How many arguments does that cause in homes of the women who couldn't care less about football and the men who want the games on when company's there? I mean, I found the best compromise is keep the games on with the sound off.
Yeah.
That's about the best compromise.
See, I'm lucky. Linda loves football as much as I do. My relatives, some of them are more into cooking than football, but what can I tell you? Yes. So Minnesota squeaks by Seattle, 27-24. Sam Darnold with 3 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson.
Late run. Justin, 10 catches? Sorry, Mac. I caught him 10 catches. Game winner. They fell behind in the fourth quarter, had a chance for last drive, took it down the field, and Minnesota has been perhaps the biggest overachiever in all of football. And let me tell you, I told you so about Sam Darnold in the beginning of the year. You laughed at me when I said he's going to be really good for the Vikings this year. He's going to have a really good year. So, Mac, I'm kind of calling you out for laughing at me about it. He's been outstanding, Sam Darnold, all in all. Maybe it's because of the type of team he's with. That might be it in large part. But Minnesota plays their final game of the season. If they're tied with the Lions, and it comes down to who gets the final bye, they play at Detroit. And believe me, that would be a big, big game for whoever, for both teams. But Detroit playing at home, if they win that game to get home field throughout the playoffs, it kind of takes something out of you when you're in a must-win situation at the end like that. But Minnesota has a certain chemistry going there this year, Mac.
I think Minnesota's maybe one of the best overall teams in the league right now. I mean, you got a quarterback with 2 great wide receivers. You got a good running back. Your defense turns the ball over. I mean, they got a shot, Jay. They got a real shot of being a Super Bowl. We talked about it before. Maybe they are a Super Bowl contender. They still got a couple teams they got to get through, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, Mac. At 13-2, they are very legitimate at this point. And you just look at their individual players. I mean, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones when healthy running the ball, good offensive line, excellent defense under Brian Flores as defensive coordinator. I mean, Kevin O'Connell, a coach that seems to really have control of his team. A very nice atmosphere they have at Minnesota.
Yeah, we talked about it before. Imagine Buffalo, Minnesota in the Super Bowl. That would be awesome. One of them's got to win.
That would be awesome because for the first time, one of the franchises would have won the Super Bowl. It would be a near perfect scenario. If the Lions get in, they never won a Super Bowl. They've never been there. That would be great as well. Or if the Chiefs three-peated, that would kind of be exciting because we love watching teams go for greatness. But, someone could spoil the script like the Green Bay Packers, the team that I picked to win it all. It wouldn't be as good for football if they won it. I don't think it's, one of the other teams winning it for the first time. But the Packers do have a magic name in the NFL. They won it, it would go over big. They have a great fan base.
Huge fan base. So
Yeah.
Buffalo slips by the Pats 24-21, 12-3. Josh Allen, not one of his better games that he played. Drake May, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions. And as we talked about before the show started, the turnovers, I mean, they killed the Patriots. The Patriots really had a chance of winning this, Jack.
Talk about trap games. I should have considered that. I was joking with our chief angle on the show yesterday, and I said, which team is least likely to win today? I said that yesterday, meaning the Patriots. They were the team least likely, I thought, at one point to win before I reconsidered and switched to the New Orleans Saints, who are playing at Green Bay tonight. And it was a trap game. A team can't get up there every game. Ideally you want to, but let's be honest about it, Max. Some games you get up for more than other games. And if you don't, that means a playoff game is just another game. And if a playoff game is just another game, you're not going to take your level of play up at all and be better. So some games you're a little more up for than the others, and you should be. The players on the Bills are human. They see they're playing the Patriots. They're not psyched like they'd be playing the Kansas City Chiefs. You show up, you play, you prepare, you're professional. Don't get me wrong, but you're not psyched for the game. And it showed the mental aspect of it. The Bills won because they just a better team. It was a close game. But believe me, the Patriots were more up for the Bills than the Bills were for the Patriots, and it kind of showed.
I'd agree with that. I think the Patriots definitely next year got to upgrade in some way or another. I mean, they got to get better receivers. Their defense isn't playing as well as they did last year. They definitely got to upgrade. Yeah, they definitely got to upgrade. To 2 tight ends were really the ones that were catching most of the balls for Drake May. I mean, the wide receivers were involved a little bit, but it was those tight ends that really Drake May went to a lot. So,
well, we thought the Patriot defense would at least be respectable this year. That would be the strength of their team, even though we didn't expect much from them this year. And their defense has been very average. It's been disappointing.
It really has. Las Vegas against Jack, 19-14. I mean, the only thing I took away from there is Brock Bowers with another good game, 99 yards. It was mainly a defensive game. But Brock Bowers is a great young tight end.
Yeah, I'm going to give the Jets a little bit of a pass, put them on probation for now, even though I criticized the Jets heavily for not taking Brock Bowers in the draft. Although Fashion knew who they took, the offensive lineman, who went out with an injury yesterday. He's had a solid year. Had a solid year. Let's see what he does the rest of his career. My point was with Brock Bowers, you can't go wrong. I knew he was going to be outstanding. But if Fashanu turns out to be an excellent offensive lineman for years to come, I can understand the merits of taking him ahead of Brock Bowers. Okay? But is this linked to Aaron Rodgers? Panic. Oh, we got to protect Aaron Rodgers. Got to protect every quarterback that you bypass, a player like Brock Bowers. But let me tell you about yesterday's game, Mac. Mark Davis, the Raider owner, was going in the locker room congratulating everyone, and they were acting happily. But the Raiders, who had the number 1 overall choice in the draft, kind of slipped from that position. The Giants have it now, and with their 3 wins, I'm not sure what position they're in because other teams have 3 wins like Tennessee, Jacksonville, etc. And some teams have 4 wins. So who knows how that's going to play into the draft order when the season ends. We'll know more in a couple of weeks. But sometimes the player you would want at number 1, it's going to be that number 4, number 5. Okay? Yeah. Because there's maybe not a clear-cut number 1 selection in the draft this year because Travis Hunter's not a quarterback. He's probably going to be the first non-quarterback taken. But the teams that want a quarterback, they might not be that high on Shedeur Sanders. He might, slip to 3, 4, 5.
It's possible. Very possible. I mean, college and pros are pro, and, it's 2 different leagues. And we find out that a lot of these young quarterbacks that come up and play in the NFL are kind of, they're not used to the speed. It takes a while for them to adjust. And that gets me into what we were talking about before the show. I mean, I know you, for some reason, like to throw young quarterbacks into the fray and say, fend for yourself. Me, on the other hand, for the most part, I think that they should sit for at least a year so that they can get used to the speed. They can learn from the pros on there. It matters what team you're on. I get it. If you don't have a choice, Bo Nix, I mean, who are you going to start besides Bo Nix? There's no other quarterback there. But if you have a choice, Caleb Williams could have sat. Jaden Daniels wouldn't have sat. But there are certain situations, Jack, where you got to sit the quarterback.
Well, Mac. The Commanders have Marcus Mariota, a veteran. You mean to tell me Jaden Daniels would have benefited sitting on the bench this year?
Oh, no. I said Jaden Daniels had to start. There's no doubt.
No doubt. But he was better off playing. Caleb Williams is learning, getting mistakes out. He's had moments of brilliance. He's better off playing this year. I mean, I understand the situation, like I said before the show, when the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes, he was a great talent, but they had a good established quarterback in Alex Smith. So the plan all along when they drafted him was Alex Smith is our quarterback this year, and he did take the Chiefs to the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes is our guy of the future. Patrick Mahomes is going to transition 1 year. I can understand that if you got the right guy, like you just mentioned. Now, the reason why most of these teams draft a quarterback in the first round is because they feel they don't got the right guy for the long run. I mean, play him when he's ready, unless he's very raw. We were talking about the Jets before the show. If you're going to run it back with Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not enthusiastic about doing that anymore at all, I can understand it if you draft like a Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers, who you're not confident can come and start and do well immediately. You want them to learn, have a transition year in the NFL. Then you keep Aaron Rodgers maybe one more year, and he kind of learns, the quarterback you draft kind of learns under Aaron Rodgers, and then you make the transition, and everyone understands the transition is going to be made.
Yeah, there's been tons throughout history of quarterbacks, not playing right away. And when they get in, they normally play better. I mean, I don't even with Eli Manning, right? You still had Kurt Warner, who played behind him and then the Giants were 5-4 when Eli took over, and they ended up not doing too well. I just think, Jack, in the most cases, some cases you got to play. I understand it, but in most cases,
thank you, forgive it. Thank you. You condemned your own argument, Mac. You said it best. They didn't play as well when Eli got in. He was carrying the clipboard for 9 games. It didn't help him at all. He made the mistakes. He learned by playing. But I understand in that situation, the Giants had Kurt Warner. Right. Kurt Warner is an established, outstanding quarterback, even though at the time he was considered a semi-bridge quarterback, but then he later took Arizona to a Super Bowl. So he did have a lot left. Okay, but it depends on the situation. But I'm looking at the current crop of quarterbacks here. J.J. McCarthy's been hurt, so he hasn't been practicing. This has been I don't want to say a wasted year for him, but what's he gained this year? Sitting in the film room, sitting in on meetings, observing. I mean, maybe he's learned a little bit, but this hasn't made him ready to play. You have to be on the field playing. That's the way you learn more than any other way, I think.
I don't know. A lot of quarterbacks have become busts. It depends what team you're on, Jack, right? I bring up Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is going to be a very good quarterback. I know that. But his line's terrible. He's sacked almost more than anybody in the league. He's taken a lot of punishment. I mean, it wouldn't hurt them to let I forget the second string quarterback's name there, to let him go for a little while, then bring him in. I don't think. I mean, the Bears ain't going anywhere.
played next year, he would have gotten sacked next year. The same thing would have happened, but a year later.
Maybe. And I think the coach is under a tremendous amount of pressure to win, too, and play who the GM says that they should play, too. I think there's a lot of pressure on head coach to do that. So, anyway, let's get back to the games. Miami, 29, San Francisco, 15. Really, Avanche was the star of the game. The running back had 122 yards. Tua had a 215 and a touchdown. Purdy played well, but I think San Francisco's all done, Jack. I don't think they can come back.
They're done for this year. I mean, they're eliminated for this year, basically. It's
Miami hanging in there.
Miami. Technically, they have a tiny chance of making the playoffs. They have to win their last two. A couple other teams have to lose their last two. It's going to be tough. I mean, technically they're alive, but their window basically closed. I mean, when Tua got hurt, it kind of went downhill. And, and even yesterday's game, Tyreek Hill had some drops, and he's saying, well, I've got to practice a little more with Tua, He's got I think in like one of the voluntary days off or something, he's got to put in a little more to work and all that. And something about Miami. Miami might be good next year. They might be good next year. They have some pieces. Their defense isn't bad. It's been coming around. And but this year, you get a feeling a wasted year. And we're not sure what to make out of Tua. Is he good enough to be the Dolphin franchise quarterback? Yeah, they're paying him. He's good enough for that, I think. But you wanted to see Tua take the next step. And when you talked about the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, you wanted to see him in the discussion at least, develop to that point. He's not in the discussion of top 5. He's in the discussion of maybe top 12 or 15. But you wanted to see him be one of these elite quarterbacks. And he's not there. I think of the 3 quarterbacks, Mac, with Alabama together. Tua, Jalen Hurts, and Mac Jones at the same time. Yeah. Look at, Tua replaced Hurts, and Hurts had to transfer, and Hurts has been the better NFL quarterback today.
Agree. What are the 49ers got a lot of people they got to pay next year. What do they do with Purdy? Do they give Purdy a big contract, medium contract?
You tell me, what would you do?
I would offer him a medium contract around $40 million a year. I would not give him 60.
Mac, what you offer him, the question's this. You have to offer him something that you feel he will take. Because if he doesn't take it, he's a free agent. And then you have to ask yourself, will someone else offer him more money than we're offering? Because if that's the case, chances are he signs elsewhere and you lose Brock Purdy. So you can't it's not just in your hands to negotiate with him one-on-one. There's the outside factors. He's going to see what his market is. And I'm honest, if I'm Brock Purdy, I don't give any type of discount to the team at all because he's been grossly underpaid because of the rules. That because the Niners could only offer him so much under the collective bargaining agreement. So based on what he's given the Niners these last 3 years and what he's gotten compensated, now's the time for him to get his pot of gold. And he's earned it, you could say.
I mean, you got to think of the whole team too, Jack. I mean, if you're going to give him $60 million, are you going to be able to sign Debo? Are you going to be able to sign the big offensive tackle there who wants more money now? Are you going to be able to sign Bosa? Yeah. I mean, you got to figure it out the team-wise.
Maybe Purdy does decide to take a little less because of that factor.
Right.
I mean, sometimes players do that, but it depends on the player. Tom Brady did it all along. Peyton Manning never did that. He always took the most money. And a player has the right to take the most money. A team can see a quarterback. The quarterback is the leader of the team, and everyone rallies around that player. Maybe the the quarterback will decide, I have an obligation to my team. They're my guys. I'll take a little less to keep everything in sync.
Right.
Okay, but in reality, they are under no obligation to do that, and they shouldn't be criticized if they don't take less, if they just want to get as much as they can.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes has this contract that the way I read it, how it's designed is that he took a little off now, but his contract in about another 4 years kicks up to the highest. But for right now, you can go and get other players. I think that was a smart way to do it. I mean, the Chiefs can. Yes.
Patrick Mahomes has these endorsement deals. He has outside income. He can afford it. Even I mentioned Tom Brady taking less money for the team. At the time, his wife Giselle was making a fortune of money, and he'd have outside endorsements too. Michael Jordan too. I remember he signed a long-term deal with the Bulls, and he outplayed the contract, and he was getting underpaid technically, but he was making such massive money outside of the actual play, play on the court. An outside endorsement that Jordan said, well, I'm going to honor my deal. It's easy to honor your deal when you have a fortune of money coming elsewhere, like Ohtani in baseball. He took deferred money, okay? He was getting paid like $2 million a year in actual money now because he's making so much darn money in endorsements. He could afford to do that for now, easily.
Sure. Indianapolis, 38, Tennessee, 30. Running back Jonathan Taylor ran for 218 yards and 3 touchdowns. He went over 1,000 yards. And 1,000 yards to me at 15 games is nothing to brag about, Jack.
17.
Yeah.
Not the way it used to be. Jonathan Taylor, you could say, redeemed himself a little bit. He's a great running back, but the week before, he kind of got rid of the ball before crossing the goal line. I mean, what's with these players who don't cross the goal line and they're holding the ball out and then they lose possession? I mean, it's foolish. Be sure you cross the darn goal line before you do anything. Don't hold the ball out and start celebrating. It could come loose. I mean, we saw that happen in the Olympics with one of the skiers. Before she got to the finish line, she's starting to celebrate and then fell down, and it cost her a gold medal, which she won maybe 12 years later, thankfully. But and Tennessee has only 3 wins. They might be in position for, to draft a quarterback. And, the only quarterback I could see who's ready right now most likely would be, I didn't draft, be Shedeur Sanders, maybe Cam Ward. But Cam Ward, I think a team can get a few picks down, number 7, number 8, or whatever.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, listen, he still got 218 yards for a game. That's still, that's good running. The Colts always had a decent offensive line, Jack. From what I remember, for the last couple of years anyway.
Yeah.
Your boy Rudolph.
Anthony Richardson, Mac, also, it allowed them, with Jonathan Taylor running the way, to play more conservatively. They're teaching Anthony Richardson to rely less on his talent, to run with the ball less, not to try to make everything happen single-handedly. And Anthony Richardson has been slowly improving in that sense.
I don't know, Jack. I don't know if he's ever going to be a starting NFL quarterback. I don't know. He's just not accurate. He's not accurate enough. And you can't teach accuracy, right? You can read. You can.
The jury's still out on him. Let's put it that way. Jury's still out.
Your boy Jason Rudolph, 252 yards, 2 touchdowns,
Rudolph,
but 3 interceptions, Jack. So
I'm going to tell you the funny thing about it. The Giants are kind of like futzing around like Drew Lock, who's awful. Yeah. I mean, Mason Rudolph would be a good bridge quarterback for someone. Decent bridge quarterback. He's not bad. I wouldn't want him as my franchise quarterback, But Mason Rudolph does have the potential to possibly being another Geno Smith type if he's in the right situation. He was hoping to play at Tennessee, and now he's getting to play because Will Levis just didn't get it done. And Will Levis's future at Tennessee is really up in the air. We'll see with Tennessee whether they like any quarterbacks in the draft or what the situation is. And Sam Darnold's the next factor. I have a feeling as a free agent, the Vikings aren't going to give him the big money. They'll offer him maybe a nice contract, but not big money. And maybe one of the other teams is going to decide we're going to offer Sam Darnold really a much better contract than the Vikings are going to offer him. So we'll see.
What's your thought? I mean, we'll get to the Giants and Falcons. What's your thought on Kirk Cousins, Jack? I mean, this guy has made millions of dollars going from team to team and has been, let go by almost every team. It looks like the Falcons.
No, not let go. No, not let go. He played out his option. Until the last few games, he's been successful during the regular season. He's been a good quarterback. Kirk Cousins reminds me of a student in school who constantly gets B pluses and A minuses, yet they find their way on the honor roll year after year. They're not A students, A plus students. And he's been a good quarterback, but he doesn't take it to the next level. But I think at this stage in his career, something happened to him the last few games. What's the future of Kirk Cousins? Because they're going to cut him at the end of the year. And a team's going to pick him up for 1 year, maybe someone who drafts a quarterback. I can understand that. Kirk Cousins might be good for a team like the Raiders if they draft a quarterback. The quarterback plays under Kirk Cousins 1 year, and they move on from Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, and maybe he could start initially. Until a young quarterback gets his feet wet and comes in during the season, unless Kirk Cousins somehow has a good year. But I didn't think Michael Penix would see the field this year, Mac. I thought maybe at some point next year, but wow, I mean, Kirk Cousins really fell off. He was bad these last few games. There's no getting around it.
No doubt. Cincinnati, on the other hand, still has a shot. They're 7-8, Jack. Joe Burrow throws for 3 touchdowns. Lamar Chase, of course, the big receiver there with 97 yards and 1 touchdown. And Cleveland is just, Cleveland's Cleveland. I would hate to be a Browns fan. Every year, it seems, they can't get it together, Jack.
No, they have a terrible quarterback situation themselves. They made the play. I wouldn't say they made the playoffs last year, and their defense played poorly in the playoff game. When Joe Flacco took them on a little bit of a run last year. Now, who did they have? Quarterback Dorian Smith or whoever is quarterbacking for them now, a 5th-round draft choice. It's a bad situation there. They're going to run it back with Deshaun Watson next year because maybe they have little choice. So I could see them maybe drafting a quarterback. I keep talking about draft a quarterback. Hardly any of them might be good, Mac. It might be a weak quarterback class this season. Maybe there's a much stronger one I hear next year. So it's easy for me to say, they'll draft a quarterback. Anyone could draft a quarterback. You want to get the right guy.
Sure.
And I like Shedeur Sanders. Some people don't. But outside of him, I'm so on the rest of the guys. I don't know what to make out of them.
I agree, Jack. Ward, Milroe for Alabama. Yeah, they're okay. They're not. There's nothing that's there's nothing that stands like when Burrows was the rookie quarter. Even Herbert. They stood out in college. You knew that.
Yeah.
You knew they were going to be good in the pros.
They went 5th and 6th in the draft. Yeah. You knew you knew they were going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This year, you kind of just don't know what to make out of a number of these guys. But while I thought Quinn Ewers would be good, but
I don't
how good would he
know.
be in the NFL? He might. It's a question you think he might be, but
Yeah.
might, if you could get a good position player, do you bypass him for like a might be good type, quarterback?
I don't know. I know there's a couple good running backs. One of the guys was almost a Heisman Trophy winner. I know there's a couple good running backs down there.
State, yeah.
And,
Well, running backs usually aren't drafted high this age. I can't understand for the life of me the stupidity of the NFL evaluators by underestimating the importance of the running backs. It's flat out stupid. And why these guys get underpaid, why they're not drafted higher, why more importance isn't put on them. They're major difference makers. And I just don't get it for the life of me. But that attitude's going to change over the years again.
It sure will. It sure will. The upset of the day, Jack. Washington beats Pags Eagles. Now, Pags was on. Of course, he does his little video thing. He was bragging in the beginning. I didn't hear him at the end of the game. I didn't hear him at the end of the game say anything. But Washington wins 36-33. Jay Daniels, 5 touchdowns, Jack. I mean, a lot of those came like in the fourth quarter. I think 2 or 3 of them came in the fourth quarter. Jalen Hurts was taken out of the game with a concussion, so that did affect the game somewhat. Kenny Pickett, he went in. Barkley had 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was early. Philly 12-3 and Washington at 10-5, Jack.
Washington had 5 turnovers that they overcame too, and they made a heck of a comeback. The Eagles did take the lead, after Washington pulled ahead in the fourth quarter, and they went up 33-28. It was just a question of their defense having to hold at the end, and their defense didn't hold, which shows you the type of young player Jaden Daniels is to take his team down the field, like that, for them to win the game. And, the Eagles basically have the division. I don't want to say locked up, but they have a handle on the division. It's highly unlikely that Washington is going to catch them and win the East. I wouldn't worry if I was Philadelphia in that regard. But this loss means they have 3 losses, and Detroit and Minnesota have 2 losses. So as far as seeding goes in the playoffs, and we'll see as far as that. As far as that goes. In Washington, there's excitement there in the nation's capital. They're talking about building a new stadium that's directly in Washington. Right now, they play in the suburbs.
Right.
But now their lawmakers want to be in the heart of the city.
That'd be good for the city anyway. Listen, I don't think anybody expected Washington to be 10-5 in Week 15. I think they expected them, have a good year, maybe finish 500. Really, really exceed expectations.
In 17 games, you can't finish 500 unless you have a tie.
Right.
Around 500, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, great job by the coaching staff, the ownership, getting the right people in there. It's a total rebuild, and they really did really well with all that.
That's great. People say rebuilding years, it's an extra bonus if you go to the playoffs to do a lot better than you think you do. But sometimes you set the bar too high too early, because if Washington went 7-10 this year and Jaden Daniels was developing, people in Washington wouldn't be unhappy. They'd say, okay, we're rebuilding, good, we're in the right direction. But now they're like 10-5. Let's say they split the next 2 games for argument's sake, and they go 11-6. And and let's say they win a playoff game this year too. Next season, imagine Washington goes 10-7 and doesn't make the playoffs. People are going to be all upset. Where if they went 7-10 this year and 10-7 next year, they wouldn't be upset.
Right. It's sort of like the Giants their first year. They go to playoffs, and all of a sudden they think, well, they should at least go to playoffs again next year, and it just didn't happen. Right? Playoffs
with the Giants? Are you kidding? Win a game here.
Carolina, Jack, beats Arizona 36-30. Bryce Young, couple touchdowns. Chuba Hubbard, what a great running back. 153 yards, 2 touchdowns. I can't figure out the Cardinals, Jack. I mean, just when you think you got them. They win a few games. They end up dropping a game, and it costs them the playoffs. I mean, I don't know what's missing there. I mean, I know the quarterback has become better. They got a good running game. Their defense is decent. I mean, I don't know what's missing.
I don't know either. I'm at a loss of words when it comes to the Cardinals. I really am. I mean, a very average team. I mean, they show up on given days where they look like they can beat anyone. And then they have games like this. They fall behind Carolina. They come back, and then they can't close the deal. And, they got eliminated, from the playoffs. And for a while, it looked like, they would surprise people and maybe win the division. And the Rams, who got off to a slow start, they're right there again.
Yeah.
Rams are going to win the division again.
I give Carolina credit. They haven't.
I shouldn't say again. The 49ers have been winning the division. I meant the Rams are going to be in the playoffs again.
Yeah, wild card last year. Yes.
Yeah.
Carolina hasn't given up. I give them credit. Bryce Young has played pretty well, and like I said, Chuba Hubbard. I mean, I've never heard of the guy till he started playing for. In fact, I think he backed up. He backed up the. I got a brain freeze now. The guy that went to the 49ers.
McCaffrey.
Yes.
McCaffrey.
Yes.
Yeah. The situation with Bryce Young is intriguing. It's one that's rarely seen. He had a painful rookie season, which validates what you said to an extent. Would he have been better sitting the season or whatever? But he had a really poor rookie season, got off to a slow start this year. They benched him for Andy Dalton. And it looked like he wasn't maybe going to have a future at Carolina, that perhaps they gave up on him. And Andy Dalton got hurt after, 3 games or so. And they went back to Bryce Young 3-4 games later. What happens that Andy Dalton played well during the time? Andy Dalton wasn't going to be their future starter. Were they going to move on from Bryce Young at the end of the year? And the crazy thing about it is, Mac, when they sat down Bryce Young, if someone had called up the Panthers the moment they sat him down for Andy Dalton, let's say it was the Jets, and said, we're going to give you our 2nd-round draft choice in this draft for Bryce Young, the Panthers probably make the deal to get a number 2 draft choice. And the Jets would have had their quarterback in the future on that. But any other team who would have offered that at that time. But now, Bryce Young comes back and he's looking good. I mean, and not looking great, but looking good, like he can be the quarterback in the future. And the Panthers, no doubt, are going to, go forward with Bryce Young next year as the quarterback, unless he's atrocious in these next 2 games. And you never know how they might reconsider. But it looks like he's their guy after all.
There's another quarterback that needs help. He needs a line. He needs a couple more people to throw to. I mean, they got to really, really build that team around him if they expect him to be successful. The Rams moved to 9-6, Jack. Beat the Jets 19-9. Jets fall to 4-11. Really, Kyren Williams was the star for the Rams. He ran for 122 yards. Rodgers had 256 yards passing, 1 TD to Devontae Adams. But the Jets didn't score an entire second half, Jack.
I mean, that kicking game, Carson's awful. He misses an extra point. He misses a field goal he should make. He left 4 points on the board. Jets fumbled the ball on their last possession on the punt. And Aaron Rodgers' attitude, I'm sick of him. I've been a big Aaron Rodgers defender as much as I could. But I don't like him throwing his hands up in the air and showing people he's unhappy. And then he gets annoyed if people criticize. Keep those feelings to yourself. He wanted a timeout called with 2:21 left in the game. And the Jets were right not to call a timeout. They needed to save their last 3 timeouts. They were 2 scores down. Their only hope of winning was to score then, and they
Right.
were in field goal range, and then they would kick the ball off, and they would have had 3 timeouts left, so if they could have made a defensive stop, they would have gotten it back. The onside kick rule has to get changed. It's ridiculous. It is a waste of time. It is ridiculous. Teams have only converted in 3 of 47, onside kicks. It's ridiculous. I want to propose, Mac, let a team have the ball on the 10, 15-yard line. Let's say 15-yard line, the other teams, and they have one chance for the extra point, for an onside kick, to try to get it in the end zone from 15 yards out. At least there's a chance you block, your receivers get open, you hit a guy on a crossing pattern where he could be running into the end zone. It's more of a viable thing, or maybe even the 10-yard line. That's better off too. It would add a lot of excitement.
Yeah, but then you're talking like UFL, XFL. That's just go back to the way it was. You don't have to tell them you're. You don't tell them a fake.
It doesn't matter. That was a 10% chance, no more than that.
That's something, Jack. But it's better than 4. Can you imagine if you told a team that you're going to fake punt? All right, guys, we're going to fake punt this one. So just in case. It's just stupid, Jack. It's just dumb. Just go back. Stop trying to change rules in the NFL. NFL is fine the way it's been fine for years. I know they want to protect the players more now. I get it, right? I get it. But football is football, and you can't. I don't know. But anyway, what do you think? What do you think about? Devontae Adams came over to win a Super Bowl. Wilson.
The Jets weren't in good shape to come over to win a Super Bowl, but they were still had an outside chance of, making the playoffs. But Devontae Adams, he came over because he wanted a quarterback who could throw the ball to him. And him and Aaron Rodgers were one of the better tandems in modern NFL times. Rodgers to Adams when they were with Green Bay. So he wanted to reunite with them. Devontae Adams left Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to begin with because he wanted to hook up with Derek Carr and the Raiders because Carr was his college quarterback and they had success. And then the Raiders moved on from Carr and he was stuck with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. That was like a nightmare. He wanted to get out of it. He's not going to rip into those guys saying, I don't want to play with them. Mac, I know you're avoiding talking about your Giants. I'm not going to let you off the hook with this show. Let's not be caught with the Jets. The Jets are bad, but at least they're competitive in their games. They lose games that are competitive, which doesn't do you any good. They're 4-11, so they're bad. When you're 4-11, you're bad any way you look at it. But at least their games are in doubt, until the end of the game. So they're interesting to that point. But
we're getting there. We're getting there, Jack.
Okay.
Got to talk about Detroit and Chicago first. Goff has 336 yards, 3 TDs. Gibbs runs for under 9 yards. They jumped out to 13-0 lead, and that's really 13-0 lead. That's what really guided them to that victory. Caleb Williams, 334, 2 touchdowns, Jack. Still playing well, even in a loss.
Well, growing pains for Chicago. They'll be better. The Bears in a couple of years should have a good team. Maybe they'll start next year. There's a lot of growing pains. This game wasn't close, but they did lose some close games early in the year. So there's a lot of growing pains. They're transitioning there. I think the Chicago fan base isn't totally unhappy because, they did move on from their head coach, who was a bit of a lightning rod. And they see Caleb Williams does have potential. He could be bad at times, but he could show levels of brilliance as well. So I think there's a future there in Chicago.
Now you call Goff a game manager.
A very good game manager, by the way. excellent game manager.
All right. I'll let that go then. 336 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's a pretty good game manager, that's for sure.
No. Certain quarterbacks will go out and they'll win you that game. Goff isn't one of them who's going to go out and take charge of the game. You'll play to the game. You know, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, they'll go out and they'll win you the game at certain times. I mean, they'll just take charge of the darn game. Goff won't take charge of the game. He'll manage the offense very efficiently, you know? Yeah. That's his thing, yeah.
Atlanta embarrasses the Giants 34-7. Atlanta is now 8-7. Penix Jr. played well. I mean, for a first game, he had 1 incompletion. Didn't throw for any touchdowns or anything like that. But John Robinson, running back, really was a star. He had 94 yards with 2 touchdowns. Locke looked terrible. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 2 pick sixes.
He's awful. He is awful for Locke.
I that when
I didn't think it was that bad. You know, the Raiders, the Broncos drafted him. He didn't look too bad with the Broncos. Not good enough to start. That's why they moved on from him. I didn't see him as being a Giant starter at any point, but I looked at him as being a good backup who perhaps could do well if called upon in an emergency. But he's been dreadful. Yes. All in all, hasn't been good. And I saw a thing on the news where people speculate, after yesterday's game, saying, well, the Giants could have taken Michael Penix Jr. in the draft. And the Giants were holding out hope that Daniel Jones could still be their guy at the time. To me, Malik Neighbors is elite. I wouldn't regret taking a Malik Neighbors because he's going to be a great receiver moving forward. But knowing that Daniel Jones was going to flame out completely, if you had a chance to do it over again, would you have maybe considered taking the quarterback?
They needed a quarterback, and Penix Jr.
That's wrong. It's revisionist thinking. So if you get what I said, it's easy afterwards to criticize. Yeah.
So now with Josh Allen having a mediocre game, and I know it's an overreaction. Baltimore dominates Pittsburgh 34-17. Lamar throws for 3 touchdowns. Is he the new MVP leading candidate?
Not even close. Are you kidding me? How do you compare Lamar Jackson to the type of year Josh Allen is having? It's not even close. Josh Allen has been clearly better than Lamar Jackson this year. And it's reflected not only in the team's record, but in their individual play. It hasn't even been close. And I'm a big Lamar Jackson guy. I always talk well of him, and I still am. But, Josh Allen is clearly more of an MVP candidate than Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes this season.
I agree with that.
The two players that stand out, you could say, are Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley. But Josh Allen would be more of the MVP because Josh Allen is basically carrying this Buffalo Bill team. Okay, I don't see anyone but Josh Allen as the MVP, even though you can make a bit of a case for Saquon Barkley. That I would understand, as well. But Josh Allen's the guy. Don't even mention Lamar Jackson as an MVP compared to Josh Allen.
Henry got 162 yards. Wilson had a rough game. He was under duress the whole game. He threw a pick 6 also. They got beat 34-17, Jack. They're both still 10-5. So
yeah, it's funny. The Steelers are 10-5, but you get the feeling next season they'll have another quarterback. The record's good. I know Mike Tomlin likes Russell Wilson. You know what? We were talking about Kirk Cousins before, and this is what's popped into my head, and it's in relation to Russell Wilson indirectly. These coaches who've been in the league a long time, they remember what certain quarterbacks have done, and they like their body of work, and that's why they might go to Mike Tomlin, for example. He's been observing Kirk Cousins a long time. And he might say, I think if Kirk comes here, he could play really well. That's what I mean. Coaches who've been around a long time kind of like certain players, like Mike Tomlin, like Russell Wilson. And it was his plan all along to start him ahead of Justin Fields because he's been observing Russell Wilson throughout Russell Wilson's career. And Russell Wilson has looked good throughout his career for the most part. That's why he's starting with the Steelers. But now watching him firsthand, he's maybe not as enthusiastic. It was a bad game against the Ravens that Russell Wilson played.
A lot of fans, of course, I read Facebook today, thinking maybe Tomlin should move on. I mean, he hasn't won a Super Bowl in how many years? I think he's only won one Super Bowl in the years he's been there. And, having a winning season every year is so what? Who cares?
These fans are idiots who don't have any clue of what they're talking about. Mike Tomlin would get snatched up at the snap of the finger by another team. You mean to tell me the Giants wouldn't hire Mike Tomlin like that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if I'm the owner of the Giants, I don't need 5 minutes. I hear Mike Tomlin is let go. I'm ringing Mike Tomlin immediately. I mean, unless they're foolish enough to have a GM like Joe Shine and retain him and let him make the moves. But, owners sometimes got to take charge. Sometimes they're criticized, but sometimes you have to take charge, and make a bold move. Mike Tomlin, he gets a job easy. I mean, the Jets, how could they not hire Mike Tomlin immediately? He's one of the better coaches in modern times. If I'm going to tell you the top 25 coaches in NFL history, chances are Mike Tomlin would find his way onto the list, top 25 of all time.
It's possible. A lot of coaches, though, Jack. There's been a lot of coaches. Maybe top 30 or 40.
He's had, you said best winning record every year. He's been in charge of the program. They've never slipped up. And he has a Super Bowl win to his credit as well. He's won a Super Bowl. So let's keep that in mind.
Well, Bill Belichick got let go of. He won, 6? Had a few bad years.
Bill Belichick went to 9. And Bill Belichick was a coach of the Cleveland Browns for 5 years. They were 36-44, and they had one playoff appearance. 36-44, one playoff appearance. 5 years with the Browns, and look what he did there with the.
What I'm saying is they were willing to say goodbye to Bill Belichick, and he had won what 9 Super Bowls. He said won 6. They were willing to say goodbye to him
because he had 4 years in a row where they lost 3 of the 4 years, had losing records, and I think that it was 3 out of the 4. But they made one playoff appearance where they got blown out in that game. But they've been losing. That's the problem. I mean, and he's been making bad moves as well.
Yeah, maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
The fight last night, Jack. Was it last night?
Saturday, late afternoon Eastern time. Yeah. We're going to talk about it on Glove Fist tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time, our boxing show. Myself and Frank Laterzo. A lot of fun. Talk about the big fight. Talk about heavyweight history. And the implications of this fight. The scoring of the fight. And, what's going on in the heavyweight division and boxing in general.
Did I read right that there was an AI judge? Did I read that right?
What's an AI judge?
Artificial intelligence was used.
I don't know. I don't listen to all that. The decision in general, the consensus was that it was a fair decision, that the judges got it right. That was the consensus. You listen to the majority of the people. And you have to go on the majority. I'm not saying what the fans get emotional, everything like that. Most people did score it, Usyk in a close fight. There's a minority opinion that maybe feels Fury won, but that's a minority feeling on there. But the consensus was that Usyk had like an edge, and it was no worse than a draw, But the decision was popular all in all.
Gotcha. So remember, folks, today, 7 p.m. Eastern, Fluff Fist with Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. They'll be looking for you. Be sure to tune in. Folks, have a great Monday. We'll see you again live on Wednesday. Have a good